I'm joined now by Alison Sargent to take a look at today's French papers. Just days to go now before the first round. The suspense is mounting quickly, Alison. Tell us more.
It is, Rochelle. There's kind of the sense in the press today, actually, that a drum roll has gotten started, a lot of tension. We can start with a look at the front page of right-wing paper Le Figaro. They say 6 days from the first round, total uncertainty. It's kind of 6 days or 5 days away now, depending on how you want to calculate. The four frontrunners are now bunched up in the polls, which means there are 6 possible matchups in that second round, and there's a lot of uncertainty about the outcome of the vote, which stems actually from the uncertainty that voters themselves have. The Figaro reports that people are really trying to calculate out the candidates they like, who has the best chance of getting into that second round, because in a lot of these scenarios, voters could end up with 2 candidates, neither of whom they want to vote for. And according to one editorialist in Le Figaro, by trying to figure out all of the possible outcomes, voters are left trapped by their own calculations, unable to decide. Now, the front page of left-wing paper Libération kind of illustrates this conundrum that voters find themselves in. You can see the scribbly mess that happens when you try and imagine all of the possible matchups. They're asking on their front page, what are you going to do? And the paper says it's all amounting to a collective national headache.
Right, well, all of this indecision is all well and good, but it could lead in some cases to people simply not voting at all, couldn't it?
That's right, Rochelle. Abstention is expected to be at an all-time high. The Parisien aujourd'hui en France is very worried about this. They warn on their front page today, next Monday it will be too late, a reminder to voters to get out and vote. Now, for people who are hesitating, the paper gives a list of reasons that voters should go out and cast their vote. First, they say this election comes at a time of global instability. After the Brexit and the election of Donald Trump, things are just very unstable in the world, and we're also faced with climate change, so the results of this election will have big consequences, and the Parisien also reminds us that the French people, that the whole world is really watching them. They also say it's an important time to affirm democracy by voting, and that people should also avoid having regrets. Now, voter abstention is expected to be at around 35% in the first round, which would break the record of 28% that was set back in 2002. That was when the National Front made it to the second round. And many have pointed out that if abstention was a party, it would actually win the election. So there's a cartoon in Le Parisien that points out that the same goes for undecided voters. We can see this man is saying, undecided voters are the #1 party in France. And she's saying, do you think they'll make it to the second round?
All right, there's one group, Alison, that we don't need to worry about abstention with, and that's senior citizens who are always getting out to vote.
They are, people 65 and older are expected to be the largest group of the population that's going to be out voting this year. That's according to L'Opinion. On their front page, they say the election is in the hands of senior citizens. Seniors are also the least likely people to be undecided, which is bad news for certain candidates. According to L'Opinion, you can see in the cartoon on their front page, that's Marine Le Pen, saying to Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the downside with old people is that they remember things. Now, they're both, you can see those 2 candidates are both hiding something behind their backs. For Marine Le Pen, it's a photo of her father. He was the founder of her party and was quite closely associated with anti-Semitism. And then meanwhile, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the far-left candidate, he is hiding the communist flag. So 2 things that they would like voters to forget about that senior citizens are not likely to forget.
There's no pulling the wool over senior citizens' eyes, according to that cartoon. All right, L'Opinion says that young voters, meanwhile, are a lot harder to characterise.
They are. We say a lot that young voters are characterized by abstention, which can be true, but L'Opinion says that they're actually kind of characterize young people now by the fact that they vote much like the rest of the population, which is there isn't really a theme. That's according to an official they talked to at France's polling agency IFOP, who says there's really no such thing as the youth vote anymore. According to the latest polls of people ages 18 to 25, 30% are expected to vote for Macron, 23% for Marine Le Pen, and 20% for Jean-Luc Mélenchon. Now, the far-left candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, has really just been gaining in momentum since March, and according to communist paper L'Humanité, his campaign has gotten a big boost from young voters in particular. So you can see on the front page, his campaign has gotten, they say, a coup de jeune, and coup de jeune is an expression in France that sort of amounts to a facelift, and usually that expression is in the singular, though you can see in this case it has an S on the end. That's a reference to all of that youth support.
As you said in the beginning, Alison, these elections proving to be the most unpredictable that France has seen for decades. All to play for, but thank you for now for the French paper roundup.